Happy Thursday. So let's just jump right in and open it up to questions.
Under education negotiations, Steve, you've been having a couple meetings this week.
We got a microphone for her, is it okay?
Yeah, we're doing the audio. Yeah.
Okay.
Where do education negotiate? I'll talk now. Where do education negotiations stand right now? You've had a couple meetings with leaders in the House and the Senate. Are we going to have an education package by end of session?
We are. I'm still very, very optimistic. We are so close. Again, big picture. We had a great off-site negotiations between the House and the Senate on Monday. We got kind of the bones of a framework, and now the Speaker and the Pro Tem have their education chairs kind of fine-tuning and getting the last little details, and we should be able to start working on drawing up that legislation. And because as you know, I mean, they need to get this stuff filed probably by Monday morning. So we'll be working all weekend long, but very optimistic. And really, the good news here is both House and Senate have passed a parent's choice and a tax credit plan because they believe that every single parent deserves to have their kids in a school that's going to be best for them. So it's a major victory. Also, teacher pay raise. Teachers can be very excited. We're going to get a teacher pay raise done. And then we should, depending on how the numbers fall out, but it'll be about a 15% increase into public education funding, which we're all excited about because we all want to invest in that next generation and make Oklahoma top 10 in our education system.
Governor, the proposal that came about to try to break this deadlock on the education between the House and the Senate, shifting instead of the Oklahoma Student Fund as it had been imagined, discussion of creating a grant program by which districts would apply. There would be maybe a stair-stepped cap, 100, 150, 250, like the tax credit has. How did that come about? What are to your understanding, what are the details of that, and how would that work? Because I think there's some schools that are ineligible the first year. There's a bunch of complications. What do you think?
Yeah, that actually may not even be in the final proposal. So there's some talk right now that maybe we put some more money into the Red Bud Fund, which really prioritizes some of the rural schools that are way below the medium on per pupil funding. So they're still working through that. But the grant program, the whole idea behind that was to have an innovation fund to allow school districts to apply for whatever their needs are. For example, let's say Purcell and Blanchard and Wayne, Oklahoma, and Lexington got together and said, hey, we want to put an aviation program together. So we want to apply for a $6 million grant. It would be administered by the education department, and then they would put this grant together for whatever workforce needs that they're seeing to train up their community. And it may be different in Western Oklahoma or Eastern Oklahoma, but that was the idea behind it. Again, we're just trying to be innovative. We're trying to get more options, more schools. We're trying to get our education community to work with industry to figure out how we get every single kid college ready or career ready. And that's our job, is to make sure that every kid, when they graduate from high school, they're either ready to go to higher ed or they're ready to get a job, go into career techs, or to get right into a great career.
How seem to have a great school choice program or bill at least passed by the Speaker? So you mentioned fine-tuning. Is there anything that was disagreed on Monday that now seems to have agreement on Thursday, or are you still working out other key parts of this plan?
The first part of your question was what?
I was talking about the fact that there's agreement on a school choice proposal. I'm curious, from Monday to Thursday, has there been agreement on other parts of the education?
Yeah, the school choice plan, the tax credit piece is kind of agreed upon, and now we're just talking about the funding piece. Like, how much do we put into public education? Exactly what does the teacher pay look like? As you remember, the House had an idea to do 2,500 classroom teachers only. The Senate had a graduated scale that if you'd been teaching for over 15 years, you got a higher amount than somebody that's been teaching for 1 to 4 years. So those are all the things we're doing. And does it all go into the funding formula? Does it go into some of it go into a grant program? So those are the last little pieces. But general rule, it looks like it'll be around $500 million, give or take. Which is great. It's about a 15% increase in education funding. A big portion of that would go to teacher pay raise. We always want to be competitive with the other states that we compete with. And we love our teachers. The magic happens when we have the best teachers teaching in the classroom, and we've got to pay what market is for that profession. So they're just fine tuning it right now. We've got the education chairs talking, and as soon as we get a deal, we're going to have a press conference, invite you back, and we'll have the speaker and the pro tem and kind of going through this plan.
Governor, you met with some folks from BlackRock yesterday, and I was wondering what you guys talked about and what they had to say.
You saw that, huh? Well, first off, we had a good conversation. BlackRock doesn't want to turn into the next Bud Light, that's for sure. So they're traveling the country and very concerned when they show up on lists. And our treasurer, put them on a list. And it's really simple. What we said is, as soon as you stop attacking the oil and gas industry, as soon as you stop pushing a political agenda with our pension funds, we're happy to do business with you. And this very, very important point, these are pension funds. All we're saying is you can't use our pension funds and our assets to push some political agenda. That's all we're saying. If you're a private business and you're investing your capital and you have an ESG policy and you don't want to do business with oil and gas companies, whatever, that's fine. That's your own deal. But our pension plans, my job is to make sure that we invest those dollars for a return, and we protect our police pensions, our teacher pensions. And when we think that people aren't doing that, we're going to have some conversations with them. And that's basically what we were talking about.
Do you have any concerns about the impact on the pension funds if they divest from all of those companies, including BlackRock?
I really don't have any concerns whatsoever. I don't think that's going to drive up cost. I don't think anything like that. I think they're going to do it in a normal manner. There's a 90-day review that they're looking at, and if these companies will come in and assure us and show the treasurer that they're going to do things the right way and they're not going to be using our voting proxies to attack our oil and gas industry or to invest in certain companies that has a political agenda versus a return, then we're happy to do it. And I think that I can't speak for the treasurer, but I think that's his philosophy, and he's happy to review those. And when those companies come and want to meet with the governor or myself or the treasurer, happy to have these conversations with them. And I had Secretary Laws in there and COO Souter, who both come from the oil and gas industry, kind of walking them through exactly what we'd like to see to make sure we're protecting our pensions.
Was that meeting in person or virtual?
It was in person.
Governor, aside from the education budget, you consistently called for tax cuts, and Oklahomans still expect that to be rolled out in the final budget.
I'm glad you asked that. The question was about tax cuts, and consumer price index just came out again, and it rose another 4.9%, almost 5% again, inflation for this past from April to April. So Oklahoma companies are still struggling. Rent costs are up, as people are resetting and buying homes and cars, and your debt's resetting, rates are up across the board. And so, man, if we don't get a tax cut done this year, I don't know when we're going to do it. Like I've said over and over again, we have a $6.2 billion savings account. We have $1.2 billion in excess revenue over excess expenses. And it's going to be a shame if the House and Senate, and the House has already passed that over to the Senate, by the way, several tax cuts. If the Senate doesn't take up a tax cut, shame on us. I don't know when we're going to do it then. And so I'm going to continue to advocate. I'm going to continue to talk straight to Oklahomans that I am fighting for you for a tax cut, for a grocery tax cut, whatever I can do to lessen the burden. Government shouldn't be over here increasing spending by another $1.2 billion. We just rolled out $3.3 billion in ARPA and CARES funding over the last several years. We can do a 1/4 point tax cut, which is $244 million in lower revenue, and be perfectly fine. And that's going to signal to everyone that Oklahoma, when we have excess revenue, we're going to give it back to the taxpayers. And I mean, if I look frustrated, I am very frustrated. I've been talking about this for several years as revenues continue to go up, and we've been holding expenses and investing strategically in certain things. We need to get this across the finish line.
I was going to ask, going back to the ESG question, how do we balance the state's new ESG policies with the type of companies we're trying to recruit in Oklahoma to got a solar panel company, we've got Panasonic that's working on electric vehicles. How do you rectify this too?
I mean, it's very simple. I want every manufacturer to come to Oklahoma and build whatever they're going to be building, and we're going to be attracting companies. We're going to be focused on where the puck is heading, not where the puck is today. There's a lot of research and development dollars coming in around battery technology and electric vehicles and solar panels, and we have an all of the above approach. But at the same time, I'm not going to let someone attack our oil and gas industry and try to accelerate that and put them out of business for some other agenda. Again, it's very simple to me. If they're going to come and invest $1 billion and build a manufacturing facility, that's great. That's exactly what we want. That's what Oklahomans hired me to do. If I can recruit them from every company from Texas to Montana, I'll do it. But it has nothing to do with an attack on the oil and gas industry. No, we're standing up for that, and I'm going to stand up and fight for them. And if they're manufacturing pump jacks or solar panels, I want them doing it in the state of Oklahoma.
Governor, we've seen both chambers of the legislature, going back to the education package, we've seen them have non-negotiables in each package that seem to be really at odds with each other. It's been stalled for months as they've been trying to go back and forth on this. And so I guess my question for you is, what would you say has changed in negotiations as of late? I mean, I'm just curious, is it pressure cooker time, a little wire? I'm just curious what you guys.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is I mean, it's May 11th, and we have a constitution. I'm right on the date, right? It's May 11th. Don't ask you. So it's May 11th, and we have a constitutional duty to get this budget passed, right? Sine die is, I think, May 26th, I believe. And so we have to do that. Well, the biggest thing is we all know we want to invest in education. That's so important to all of us as leaders in this building, because I tell people all the time, look, guys, the most important thing we can do is to make sure that our kids have the best education, the best ability to earn a great living and be career ready or college ready. And so we have to find out what that number is in the budget before we can finish anything up. And so time is of the essence, and I think that pressure, and I keep reminding everybody, say, guys, take the win. We're going to be able to go back all over the state of Oklahoma and congratulate our teachers and our educators about doing it. We're going to be able to go to parents that their kids were struggling, and whether they were bullied or whatever reason, they felt like they needed another option. And we're going to be able to say, hey, you've got a tax credit now that you can take your son or daughter to a school that has a better, special needs program or reading program or whatever the case is, or your kid was being influenced bad with drugs, and so now you can move them to another school. Let's take the win. Let's stop fighting about whether this district got more than this district, or how the win should have been bigger for my school district. Those are all things that I know this building, the sausage is being made, but the big picture is when we stand up here, hopefully it's later on today or tomorrow, and we can, or Monday, and we can tell Oklahomans that we have a great education package that's going to change the face of education in Oklahoma. That's what I'm fighting for.
Governor, I'd like to talk a little bit about how we're arriving to this point where you may have news coming out in the next few days compared to previously. Non-doctors reported that there's been a mediator involved in negotiations. I was wondering if you could confirm who that is. And also talk a little bit about the sort of the negotiation strategy about over the past week or so of maybe bringing in individual legislators or small groups of legislators. How have we gotten to the place where an agreement is within reach?
Well, I mean, like I said, I think some of it's the pressure. We have tried to sit down, and I think we were kind of driven to our corners as I've been up here talking about this every week for the last couple months. There's 101 people in the House, and there's 48 in the Senate, and they have different ideas about what that looks like. And it's taken a while to kind of get to a point where we can all agree on it. And we're really, really close. But in mediation or negotiations, when two sides have a difference of opinion, sometimes a mediator can come in, and hopefully that's some of the teams we've put together, and both parties leave a little frustrated because they didn't get exactly what they wanted. But we know for the common good of Oklahomans, we're going to be able to land the plane here. So that's my message to them is, guys, let's land the plane. This is a great deal. I mean, we're arguing about a 15% increase in public education. This is a great deal for Oklahomans. It's a great deal for teachers. It's a great deal for parents. It's a great deal for choice. It's a great deal for charter schools. It's a great deal for private schools. It's a great deal for parents. So I'm excited about it. How we've gotten there is all of the above. It's just there's been a lot of negotiations, but I think now everybody's like, we got to get this thing done today.
Governor, you mentioned the Senate earlier. You said about tax cuts. I think you said now's not the time when they can't do one. Shame on them. I think you may have said, or shame on us. I don't want to put words in your mouth. I think the Senate has felt that maybe the vetoes that you did en masse a couple weeks ago were, I don't think they liked that. They expressed that. And there were some other things that have happened this session. If they were to ask you for an apology on some of that, what would you tell them? Would that help clear the air?
If it would get a tax cut, bring them in right now and I'll apologize.
You'll apologize?
If it'll get us a tax cut, absolutely. Again, my job as governor is to set the vision and to push and to ask the legislature. And from my state of the state speech, I mean, I'm not playing politics. I'm literally trying to be fiscally conservative with taxpayer dollars, invest strategically, but the CEO has to call balls and strikes. All this stuff is important, but the economy is important, and that's what Oklahomans elected me to do. The taxpayers are important, education is important, roads and bridges are important. It all has to fit together. And so the governor lays out his budget proposal at the beginning of the year, and the legislature gets to write that proposal. That's the way our system works, and the House gets to have input, and the Senate gets to have input, and the governor signs or vetoes, and they get to override or sustain. And it's kind of, you guys in here know how the sausage has been made, but 3.99 million Oklahomans, they don't even know what's going on right now. And I always remind everybody about that this is an inside baseball game, and we're going to land this plane. It's going to be great for Oklahomans. We're in a great situation. Our economy has never been better. I believe this will be one of the best sessions in state history once we finish this up. The two big, huge projects are two of the largest economic development projects in state history, and we're gonna land those. One is going through the JCAB process now, and I hope to get the other one across the finish line in the next couple weeks as well.
The topic today is the last day of the pandemic declaration. Does this impact the lab in Stillwater or maybe the PPE supply at all, or is there any change there with it being the official last day?
No, I mean, the big deal, I think, is really at the border, and I think that's Title 42 ending. Fentanyl has increased 735% in the state of Oklahoma. Those deaths just since 2018. We have to have a strong border. I went down to the border with Governor Abbott. We put a 10-point plan together. I think those are the biggest issues. You know, Oklahoma, there's a few little small things, but for the most part, I've made sure that Oklahoma is business as usual for the last several years. So I don't see any impact on those federal, mandates releasing or emergency orders ending.
But you prefer Title 42 over Title 8 just announced?
What we really need to go back to is the Remain in Mexico policy. We have to have an immigration policy, but if you want to seek asylum into the U.S. and have legal immigration, you have to remain in Mexico until that's done. So both parties are driven to their corners. We have to have strong borders, but we need to have a legal immigration policy in place. We cannot have open borders. So I prefer back to the Trump model, which was remain in Mexico, and that stopped the mass migration. If you have a catch and release, or in other words, if you seek asylum and we turn you loose into the U.S. and say, hey, come back to court in 2 years, that doesn't work. And it creates this mass migration that you're seeing at the border right now. So Title 8, I haven't looked too much into that. I saw them trying to roll that out because I think they're getting a lot of pressure. You saw the president yesterday talk about he knows there's some issues, and I think his team got mad at him for admitting that there's been crisis at the border. But we all can see that. We all know that's happening. And you're seeing Governor Abbott send 10,000 troops, National Guard troops, to the border. And it's going to cost the taxpayers in Texas $2 billion. If the federal government isn't responsible for border security, and defending our borders, that is absolutely what the federal government should be doing. That is not what the states are supposed to be required to do, but Abbott is trying to protect his states, and I applaud him for it, and we need to have an honest conversation in Washington, D.C. about it.
Did he ask you for any help from the Oklahoma National Guard for some of that effort?
He has not. No.
Would you be willing to do that?
You know, I would have to take a look at it, a hard look at that. I want to be helpful, but I'm also want to protect Oklahoma taxpayers, and I would want to know if we are sending our troops down there, are they going to be effective? How are they going to be used? And so I take that very, very seriously when we call them up and we send them on a project. So I'd have to look at that. That's a hypothetical right now because he hasn't asked for that.
Carmen, do you have a last question? Yeah, in one of your video messages, I can't remember if it was earlier this week or last week, you said that other branches of government should be subject to the Open Records Act. Are you suggesting that the legislature should be subject to the Open Records Act?
100%. Everybody should. Well, you shouldn't pick on one. If you can write laws, you shouldn't pick on just one part of the government versus the other. I don't understand why. We're not all open. If there's federal dollars moving in anywhere, then everybody should know where those dollars are. The auditor does a really good job. She has to follow every federal dollar that comes into the state and give an audit and a report for that. And so we need to make sure we know how everything is flowing in. So media does a great job of questioning some of those open records, but bigger than just the legislature and the governor's office and the federal and the agencies, but all federal dollars flowing into our state need to be. We need to know where those are spent. And also federal dollars overseas. Quite frankly, we need to have a good accounting for your tax dollars and where that's being spent. Thank you.
Are you doing something special for your wife this weekend?
I need help with that. I was just talking about Mother's Day. I've got to get something. Yeah, happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there in Oklahoma. Yeah, well, I'll be seeing my mom. She's coming in from Tulsa, so we've got a lunch plan with my brothers and my mom. I love you, Mom. She'll be watching. Yeah.